at the end of the day, everyone had to do something for the first time. And so, we go to school, you learn a lot in school. What you really learn in school, if you're going to get the ultimate takeaway, is how to deal with shit, how to problem solve, and how to understand that what makes you uncomfortable might be what makes you grow the most.
Hi, everyone. This is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Gerashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success and learn a little bit more about how they help their clients. Today, I have Adam Warren, the CEO and co-founder of OpenJar, which is a full-service creative and media buying agency built for high-performance advertising. They've historically specialized in the legal sector, driving lead and case generation for top law firms. And they're not just an agency, they're a vertically integrated platform that owns the funnel from campaign to conversion. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
I feel like it's my job to just highlight good backgrounds. So for anyone watching on the video, we love the background. We love the signatures, the golf, the But where I want to start is something that I know you're very proud of, and that's your self-published children's book, A Bear with Pants. So can you tell us a little bit more about the book and why you wrote it?
The book is about acknowledging differences. Every character in that book is a different animal who is within their name defined by the single article of clothing that they wear. So bear with pants, I have frogs with fedoras, snakes with scarves. Yet you have one bully who, you guessed it, would be the snake, right? But over the course of the book, through different interactions, which go kind of badly at one point, end up being what brings all these characters together. And so, I dealt with some bullying as a kid. My daughters both dealt with it. And I generally like to do things that I don't know how to do and haven't done before. And so I knew that I'm not a novelist. I don't quite have the attention span for that. But I thought, hey, what about a children's book? And I have two young girls at that time, and I used their books as research and development. And I just jumped in, and it was a lot to figure out. It took about 4 years from start to finish between going through the whole process of writing that book when I had time. Then a long period after engaging the artist, Zach Arnett, a long time. He's also a musician, so I would have to wait when he was on the road to come back from touring and then create these different animations. He did 13 animations that are just beautiful. And I wanted to do something creative because at the end of the day, my background begins with creative, and I wasn't producing a movie or a commercial at that time, so I figured a book. And I also felt that goes to legacy. Some point my kids are going to have kids and so on, and they're going to read each other, their children and their children's children, those books written by me. And that to me was meaningful. Creating something that tells a story, but also teaches a lesson. I'm very much about being inclusive and judging based on character, not image.
Trying to tie it to business. Did your experience writing it or anything going through that process tie into what you're doing with the agency at all?
Well, it was while that book was written in 2017 and the agency was started in 2009. But in doing things that make you uncomfortable because it's not familiar, like how do you sit down and write a children's book? How did I know how to find a copyright editor, a children's book editor, self-publish, illustrations, choosing what kind of cover to put on the book, what kind of paper to use? these are all, each and every one of them, first-time decisions. Well, look, business owners deal with that every single day. Just when you thought, as especially a marketer, you've seen everything, we haven't. We've only seen everything up to this point. But tomorrow is going to be another monkey wrench. And so I'm going to be dealing with tomorrow with fresh eyes, with fresh experience, and having to learn as I go. And, I think that is something that I reminded myself of in writing that book to keep it from scaring me away from doing it. And believe me, I thought about not doing it about 30 times. In fact, I didn't tell anyone but my wife and kids for the longest time that I was even doing it. In fact, the majority of people who know me didn't know until I finally had the book in my hand. So it was a big secret to sit on because I did not want to disappoint if I decided an 11th hour back out. But even in other parts of my career, my first movie, I had no idea what I was doing. I just generally don't let that be the deterrent. Because at the end of the day, everyone had to do something for the first time. And so, we go to school, you learn a lot in school. What you really learn in school, if you're going to get the ultimate takeaway, is how to deal with shit, how to problem solve, and how to understand that what makes you uncomfortable might be what makes you grow the most.
And you did mention the first movie, so I can't let that go. We talked about it a little bit before. Can you tell us a little bit more about the movie, what you worked on, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I had a friend at the time. He was also a writing partner. Another, thing. We're just like, hey, I think we have an interesting story. Let's write a movie. So I think we used the software Movie Magic Screenwriter on a computer that literally died after we saved the project. You're talking a long time ago. It was not recoverable, and had we not thrown that onto a disk, that whole thing was going to be gone. So he and I sat down. We decided to write a movie. I was working as a personal trainer at the time. I had a pretty good business at that time in Austin, Texas, and I was training some of Austin's more affluent clientele. And I started talking to them about it. And one of the clients who really leaned into it, he's an attorney. His name is Vic Fazell, and he is a legendary Texas attorney, once the former Waco DA. And now he runs a thriving practice in Waco. He said, I understand you're talking to your other clients. I'm interested in doing what you're doing. Why don't you give me the script? So we met about 2 weeks later to discuss it. And he said, well, what have you heard? I said, well, I've got someone who's interested in doing half the budget. And he said, just tell him we're not interested. I'm going to take the whole thing. And that is history. And it was a comedy. It was a stoner comedy. I was like 23, I think, when I wrote that with my partner. What could we relate to? What could we talk about? I don't know, stuff that 23-year-olds do and think about. And so, if it could have been written for Cheech and Chong, quite honestly, but it is written for us two knuckleheads. It did okay. We used a director who had just graduated from USC Film School. And he had a real quirky way about him. We did have an actress who had been working on Living Color at the time. Her name is Tangi Miller. Another actress from the TV show Felicity was in it. She was actually my love interest in the film. And it was just a good time. We won Best Feature Film at the New York International Film Festival. We got awards at an Arizona Film Festival. It did okay. But it wasn't a blockbuster. It didn't have enough skin, according to one executive I spoke to at an unnamed movie house studio. So it goes into the realm of cult classics that you hope to find online somewhere. In fact, I just talked to my producer. It's not digitized.
I know. I was looking for it.
Yeah, we searched for it last time.
One firm who was supposed to be representing us illegally put it up on YouTube, and then he sent them a cease and desist. So now that's gone. Hindsight 2020. I kind of wish it was still there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just hit him and said, "Is the film digitized? We need to do that because now my own kids haven't seen it." And now at 19 and 26, I'm willing to, or 25, I'm willing to let that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, please. I might keep harping you on that, and because I'd absolutely like to see it. Trying to tie that now to a business, getting into the business conversation. Did that movie life in some way lead to you founding an agency? What's the progression there?
Yes, this is the story of if you want to do something, you have to be almost stupid in your persistence to get there. So there came a point where I was now a father of one, and had a soon-to-be wife, and decided it was time to get out of the movie business because it was not creating consistent revenue for me. And I had an opportunity to move into ad sales in the TV sales side of advertising. The way I looked at that was that would be my path back. I just didn't know how long it would take. In fact, it took a really long time. I worked at the first firm for 3 years. Then I moved over to another agency who did no creative at all. I was there for 5 years. And then my own firm, it took me more than a decade to get back to this, or about a decade exactly. Maybe even in 8-9 years. So you're talking about a long run from being in my late 20s to now, early 30s to now, to finally getting back to being able to utilize creative. Now, if I didn't have that background, no, 100% our agency would not be offering this. Because it's not anybody in the business who would have had the business lens to say, wait a minute, there's an opportunity for another line item here that can also be used as a great entry point to engage a more broad base of clients. That's exactly what it is, right? Production in and of itself for us isn't driving all the revenue. Media acquisition drives the revenue. But it has allowed us to put ourselves in a different light, on another stage, with clients to say, oh, I mean, you guys are basically a unicorn. There's not a lot of companies who can create and manage the content. You typically go for one service, another for the other. We can do it all. We've always made our own mass tort commercials, for example. We've made over 1,000 different ads for different types of campaigns. They're all edit bay based. None of those are winning awards, and none of those are really building brands. They're very campaign centric. What I wanted to do was get into brand building, and the way that I saw to do that was within our niche of legal marketing. And so I started going to local attorneys and saying, I can help your brand through storytelling. We live in the age of content. You're missing the boat if you're not creating good content. It's all anyone cares about, at least in terms of entertaining needs or engaging needs or who they work with. There's an old saying: you work with who you like. That's the most optimal person to do business with. Well, if you're never going to be able to create a relationship with someone, you kind of can do that through content. People begin to feel that like they're building a relationship with you through content. And so I looked back on my history and said, this is the moment where I get to take those lessons of my past and put them into action. And it was right around when I was finishing this book, when I was finally moving towards doing my first really big ad in this industry. And it's just such a cool ad. It's this... We turned this attorney out of Texas into like a spy. It was like this Jason Bourne kind of leaning inspired project, and it was so much fun, and no one had ever seen anything like it.
So cool. Is so approaching it from the branding side, what's like, are there specific services that you offer with the creation as well? Like I'm ultimately thinking there could be a whole range of services. And what I'm wondering is, how did you decide where to specialize, where to focus on which ones?
Well, I think it's important you don't get out of your wheelhouse. I respect, so I'm always the first to just come out and say, the first thing we don't do is SEO, right? I feel like that is extremely specific. I think
Absolutely.
that companies who tend to offer SEO, that is what they do. I could not do that as a side note. So that is something we stay away from and defer to those experts. In fact, I love working alongside SEO because I know what we do gives boost to it. Like even just from an organic perspective, what we do always impacts the organic SEO. I have clients who don't do any SEO yet. All of a sudden, their optimization is going up, and it's because of what we're doing. So, in terms of the stuff we do content and ads for television, content and ads for radio, content and ads for social media marketing, the same for billboards, the same for print. And then there's other types of digital things we do that is not just social media centric. And if there's content needs, we fill the needs for almost anything that we buy. Because we've been doing it long enough, we feel we've got a pretty good idea of what gets people to stop in their tracks. We've tested enough creative to know what gets passed over. And so we're trying to at least have a grasp on as much of the ecosystem that we offer to clients as possible. And every client doesn't get everything. That certainly takes a really healthy budget, which everyone just doesn't have. But the cool thing about our business, I should say, is we're fine to work within a la carte because sometimes that's appropriate. We know that there are certain campaigns that only function well within certain media types. We know that TV can be very expensive. It's a high bar to entry. So maybe we don't do TV. Radio, lower barrier to entry, lower creative costs, can get up and up, can lower distribution costs, can get on and off the air faster. Easy, right? Then you have social media. I could pull campaigns up and down at the snap of a finger. So it's easy for us to figure out what the client's budget is, figure out what they need, and then plug them into the media and the content that's appropriate for them. If there's something we don't offer, let's say I would like to have some controls over the website development, we bring in a partner for that. Either we white label them or we let it be known from the start. We're always looking to identify vendors because someone always has something you don't. And business owners who don't admit to that are full of shit. I think you have to recognize that sometimes you can't be, omniscient. We recognize as a company that strategic partners are important. And we have very much so built a company with strategic partners from day one. So if there's something specifically I can't do in-house, now my team, yeah, we can do some web stuff, but we're really not out there offering that. We're offering the other stuff. That's more of our meat and potatoes and where we feel comfortable. We're just good with knowing how sites should function. If it's a lead generating site, functionality is definitely something. Landers that are all going to kind of look very similar on a legal campaign. Yep, we can do that. But when you're really talking about a very, very well built out site that could be 30, 40, 100 pages, I'm just not going to put my resources into that. I'll bring in a partner. Everything else we do.
Okay. And how did you get to the specialization of the legal space attorneys? Or is it a specific services that attorneys offer, like personal injury versus something else? And how'd you get there?
Luck. Look, I say that because it's it's probably among the most powerful ad sectors there is right now. It has breathed a life into the ad space that I have yet to see another vertical do. I have yet to see more companies falling over themselves to be in the legal space across any other vertical. We've been in it longer than I think anyone at this point. Because my partner and I, Reno, we were not working on legal advertising on day one of OpenJar. He and I were working together for 5 years prior to that and doing campaigns that most people doing it now haven't heard of because they were still in school. So we had kind of a mastery of it already. Like if you think of, you've heard of mesothelioma campaigns or SJS, was the Stevens-Johnson syndrome or others. Most marketers today have never heard of those. So he and I already had a lot of equity in the space at our prior agency and managing those campaigns. We had an understanding, deep-rooted understanding of that very early. When we started our company, we started with some of our big attorneys, but we also started with the mortgage category, the student debt, the health insurance. And we can still do those verticals, which I would call our underbelly verticals. Those are the evergreens that they don't really ever go away. A lot of the legal campaigns are very transient by nature, so it's not likely they'll be around forever. So just generally speaking, as an agency, it's pretty healthy to be, vertically diverse. But the vast percentage of our revenues, because when they're live, are coming from the legal side, and that is a heavy combination of mass tort, and then on the local side, single event. And they're very different applications in terms of how we approach those two types of media. But it just kind of happened. It started building and building, and then we created our brand because we are lead generators at heart. That's where this whole thing started. It started building, and we realized that just like we might have a debt vertical, and we had 6 different debt companies behind any given ad that we were shooting leads to in a round robin, the same thing happened in legal. Suddenly we had all these attorneys that didn't want their names on brands, but they wanted to advertise. So they used the Sentinel Group as a legal matching service, which is what it is. And that's kind of what caused us to say, wait, we need this. I wasn't thinking about starting the Sentinel Group ever. But it was kind of met with no choice. We had to create a brand, and now that brand is over 10 years old. And has an awful lot of market equity and recognition behind it because it's been on every case for no less than the last 10 years.
So I guess I'll take that and run to kind of this next section of the interview. And like you mentioned, you guys are really focused on lead gen. And what I thought we could do is take a look at a website together. I know you're not on the SEO side, and that's and we're not on the SEO side, but we're more on the development side. So I thought that we could kind of run through how you look at the website, tie in how kind of we look at the website, hopefully have this full picture on how to make a website better. So let's spend a few minutes on that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, I'm gonna share, and then Adam, you pick. I pulled up a couple from your area. Do you know any of these companies?
I am familiar with Mr. Ross Jurowitz, yes, and I think you pulled up Sadian. I don't know this person, but I love that they're from Temecula. Maybe
yeah, all 3 of these are.
I love this. This is great.
So pick whichever one you want to start with. I'll scroll down the page if you have a preference on which one.
Why don't we start with this gentleman right here?
Okay. All right, so I'll do just a quick scan, and then we'll come back up to the top, and you can kind of take us through how you look at this from branding differentiation side.
And feel it's a long page, so feel free to tell Alex where you should be scrolling.
Yeah, that's true. If you want me to pause, but obviously they're trying to go for SEO related content. This is a hefty landing page. All right.
Right. And, I don't fault, there's, that you guys could probably tell me there's technical reasons why you would do it that way. Right. You want to get spidered and all that. That's very important. As a lead generator, when you start getting stuff below the fold, that concerns me that it's just going to disappear. Not everybody is a long scroller. I might like to see that his lead capture, his form fields were a bit more accessible. I thought they were too far down, and that's always something you can put on the, like, let's say he took this and just moved it off to the right and it was there from the top of the fold. Like, from the, I mean, you can't see exactly where your cursor is. Like, what if it was there? I think that people, the design challenge, is you have to remember you're dealing with the short attention span theater, and maybe one of the greatest short attention span theaters in our nation's media consumption history. It's never gotten worse. There's too much that these people's brains are competing for. So I think that I think it's a nice looking site. I don't really have anything to say negatively other than the green is a little difficult, I think. I don't know how much. It looks like that's part of their color. So what do you do there? I don't know. Can you outline it in black? If you went down a little bit, it did become Temecula personal injury resources. That is very difficult for me.
It is.
Not because I'm blind, but it's a light green. It appears faded, and it looks like a section I'm going to pass through.
Yeah. And there's going to be issues with this with usability.
Yeah. So I didn't love that.
And accessibility. Yeah.
Otherwise, look, I'm one of those people who tends to focus on the menu at the top versus the long scroll down. So I don't want to project how I use sites typically as the stamp of approval for how everyone does it. But that's typically, I like to break my information up into bite sizes. And that also translates to how I design. So when you look at some of the things that are designed by us, we're minimalists. I just don't want to say too much because I looked at some firm's brochure recently. I didn't know where to look. There was so much on it. Therefore, I had paralysis and I had to close out of it. So, pretty much a lot of our ads, it might have a QR code, a tagline, and a design. We understand now that people are trained differently to look at things and respond differently. And so we're trying to adapt to that. But the one thing that I would do is I'd move that form fill up.
Yeah.
You're going to lose people putting it's below the how can we help you? Move it to the top. People are going to you because they're doing their own diligence. Don't make it hard for them to contact you. Make it as easy as possible. And even if they only put name, email, phone number, and then they had a secondary one below if you wanted to add more to it, that's my biggest criticism of this. And that's generally what I would say anywhere. And then the light green that struggled to be visible were my biggest issues. Other than that, you got to do right for SEO and whatnot, what you got to do on that long scroll. But I don't think a lot of people see, let's say you get 50% of the way down. I don't know if you can see that there's probably a number of fall off that starts to happen that never sees that content at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. Not unless they go find it along the top of the menu.
Yeah. Most of the time we're looking for. Oh, go ahead.
Scroll back up to this rated by super lawyers. I don't. Why is that down there? I don't know. I would get
that needs to be at the top.
Put it at the top. Put the
same thing with this locations, the rating. Yeah, we have this
Alex, do you want to kind of
format. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, some of the things that we've been looking at conversion rate optimization. That's really been our focus over the last 2 years. And what we found is the way visitors absorb sites, they go through a series of questions, and it's like the same thing as walking into a store for the first time, or like a sales room or something like that. Your first question is like, am I in the right place? Did I walk into the right place? Did I click on the right link, either from an ad or SEO or whatever? And then, so that maps to, I have to be very, very clear that I am in the right place for me. Now, that's pretty clear here. So it's not, there's no benefit listed in here. The second part of it is, am I in the right place and do you get me? The do you get me portion is, do you understand the pain that I'm having, the problem that I'm having, and what I'm looking for as a goal or a benefit? Because that's bonus points. But once you feel like, yeah, I'm in the right place, the next thing you start looking for almost subconsciously is, do I trust this company? That trust needs to happen before you feel like you're ready to take whatever that next step is. And so the do I trust this company, they have that stuff. They've done a bunch of cases. They have 5-star reviews. They are super lawyers. They have 8 locations. The problem is it's hidden and you can't see it. So that you're likely not even going to get to that, because you're going to look through this and be like, nah, I don't know. Maybe I can't really, like, I need a specific, I'm looking for something specific. Maybe you'll use the menu, maybe you won't, but it should be on the page. So you got the, am I in the right place? Do you get me? 2, do I trust you? Do I trust this company? And only after you feel like I can trust this company, do you get to, do I feel comfortable taking the next step? And that do I feel comfortable is essentially a de-risking process. What's that, what does this look like? Am I going to be embarrassed? This is going to be a waste of time. It's going to be more expensive than I thought it was. Free case evaluation is great. Tying it into some other things that may give them comfort would be better. But this prominence, obviously, free case evaluation, I don't know if that's a tag or a button. But I think the making of a good website for what information you need to have is here. Yeah. But it's just not designed the right way.
Yeah, there's definitely some improvements that can be made here. We've pointed out a couple. I bet you if we look at 100 sites, we'll find 100 things to fix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's is it? I can't tell because I'm not running the screen. Is it responsive? How does it look when you shrink it down? Oh, so you do. You're a little tight to the margin there.
See, it's a little off.
So yeah.
Not great.
It's a challenge, sure, but that takes and look at that. That takes away what I would say is the value of their professional perception.
Mm-hmm.
So look. No knock against this attorney. I might give him a call, but they need some assistance.
There you go.
I would say,
yeah,
they need some assistance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you are going to reach out, if you want the video, if that helps you kind of with the reach out, feel free to ask us. Anything else on this? Otherwise, I'll start to wrap up.
No, I think that's I think we hit some of the key points, which pull up any number of websites and you're going to see probably a lot of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way I spoke about SEO, the same goes for you guys. You're a very specific talent. You're a very specific profession. I think that no different than if I contacted someone who needed a new logo and I'd say, well, where'd this one come from? Oh, well, my brother-in-law made it. You can't have anyone you can't have your brother-in-law who isn't doing this full time making your logo any more than they can be designing your website. It's too important. This is your storefront. And
Absolutely.
it's, I had another joint interview I did with a good friend of mine, Gary, who runs primarily radio is what he focuses on. But, what we do is supposed to inspire this organic search. And people want to go check out that virtual storefront before they call you. It's generally a conversation, especially what we're talking about in the industry we're talking about here, that isn't always about, hey, I just won the lottery and I need an attorney. It's about really bad news. Mm-hmm. So it's a more difficult decision than I think maybe potential plaintiffs are given credit for. And they're going to always lean into familiar. So whoever's doing some of the better branding in the market is usually going to win. And they're also going to be higher up in the rankings. But if people come upon your site because they're not looking for the big whale, they're looking for someone who's going to really take this family in their time of need in and be their, be their sword, right? They're the ones who are going to fight for them. Well, you got to do a little bit more to give them the comfort that you're not only a great lawyer, but you've taken the time to present yourself in the best possible way. And I just think a lot of, especially younger law firms, or law firms who just think that marketing doesn't matter, are missing the boat. They're just missing it. And no different than all of us on this call as, agencies of some kind. We always have to be in touch with what's happening now and what's about to happen tomorrow. Law firms need to do the same thing. This is not 5 years ago even. It's definitely not 20 years ago. And every day, every year, my partner and I sit down and evaluate how our company evolved with the times, and did we stay ahead of it, or are we still trying to catch up? And I think that the firms at this most basic, important, crucial level have to take their websites more seriously. Those type of mistakes shouldn't be existing anymore.
Yeah, and I resonate with what you're saying, and especially on the branding side, understanding who you are to your audience. Some of the feedback that we've been hearing from attorneys that are not the big national attorneys, and I think in the last 5 years, there's been a big ramp of national attorney firms, or even in the local space, the big
Morgan and Morgan.
Really, exactly. Morgan and Morgan is literally everywhere. So for the local attorney shops that may still have 10 attorneys, how do they compete? And a lot of that is, from what we're seeing, is the bigger firms wouldn't take the case. So now you're becoming kind of an advocate more so for the family or for this person, because the bigger firms wouldn't take it. So I think that getting the branding right, and that's not something that we focus on. It's the same thing as you're saying, like we pass that on to, you have to get your branding right. You have to get your message right. We do interviews with clients, their clients and internal salespeople, to understand how they sell so that we can do our conversion rate optimization properly. But the branding process and understanding the right messaging towards your audience is very specialized. And if you're marketing like the big firms, and we've tried it. We tried to market like Morgan and Morgan on one of our client websites. We ran an A/B test, and we created a similar site or a similar design to Morgan and Morgan just to see how it performed. It performed worse than the original design. So then we created a hybrid, and the hybrid performed much better than both. But it's this consistent, understanding of who you are to your clients. And I think a lot of that comes from the branding aspect, and they really need to be everyone needs to take that seriously, because that's how you resonate.
That's right. 100%.
And just to kind of start to wrap things up, as we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Oh, well, thank you. One is you can go to openjar.com, and we do have various contact us throughout. The other is I can be reached at adam.warren@openjar.com. I don't know, is phone number prudent? I can give my cell as well.
Whatever. This is your space.
310-99. You know, the best thing to do is, because if I don't recognize your number, I'm not going to answer the phone anyway. So you can reach me at 310-999-1417 to shoot me a text. I'm extremely responsive. I'm often told I respond too quickly on phone and text and email, but I'm always in front of it, and I like to strike while the iron's hot.
Shock factor.
I think you might be the first person to throw out a phone number.
Yeah,
with that request. About 120 episodes. You're less than 1%. You're at the less than 1%.
Hey, I mean, if I don't know who you are, I'm not going to answer it anyway. So call me, shoot me a text. Let's talk.
You asked, I was like, hell yeah, let's hear it. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you who've learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality of guests. And as always, thank you for listening. Adam, really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciated this as well, and hopefully we could do something together.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.